368, and yet even the leading of the psyche, inmost psyche. Right?
Yes, Ranga. Yes, Rangada.
Okay. So one of you has to read the para and then we'll discuss it.
Yet, even the leading of the inmost psychic being is not found sufficient until it has succeeded in raising itself out of this mass of inferior nature to the highest spiritual levels, and the divine spark and flame descended here have rejoined themselves to the original fiery ether. Or there is there no longer a spiritual consciousness still imperfect and half lost to itself in the thick sheets of human mind, life, and body, but the full spiritual consciousness in its purity, freedom, and intense whiteness. There, as it is the eternal knower that becomes the knower in us and mover and user of all knowledge, so it is the eternal, all blissful, who is the adored attracting to himself the eternal divine portion of his being and joy that has gone out into the play of the universe. The infinite lover pouring himself out in the multiplicity of his own manifested selves in a happy oneness. All beauty in the world is there, the beauty of the beloved, and all forms of beauty have to stand under the light of that eternal beauty and submit themselves to the sublimating and transfiguring power of the unveiled divine perfection. All bliss and joy are there of the all blissful, and all inferior forms of enjoyment, happiness or pleasure, are subjected to the shock of the intensity of its floods or currents, and either they are broken to pieces as inadequate things under its convicting stress, or compelled to transmute themselves into the forms of the divine Ananda. Thus, thus, for the individual consciousness, a force is manifested which can deal sovereignly in it with the diminutions and degradations of the values of the ignorance. At last, it begins to be possible to bring down into life the immense reality and intense concreteness of the love and joy that are of the eternal. Or, at any rate, it will be possible for a spiritual consciousness to raise itself out of mind into the supramental light and force and vastness. There, in the light and potency of the supramental gnosis, are the splendor and joy of a power of divine self expression and self organization, which could rescue and recreate even the world of the ignorance into a figure of the truth of the Spirit.
Okay. So we'll go into detail to identify each word because you must have a clear idea of what he's saying. So remember, there are three levels. Level one is, I keep repeating so that it becomes absolutely clear to myself and to you also both. The three levels are, we can see in many ways. One way of seeing is the transcendent, where the universe is not there. Only the divine is there. He has not yet created the universe. Second level is the universe, which is in touch with him. And the individual has not yet been created. So the second level is the spiritual planes of consciousness or the cosmic planes of consciousness. Then the third level is the individual. So we have the transcendent, the cosmic, and the individual. The individual consciousness is our consciousness at the lowest level, level one, where we are in ignorance and we are identified with our body, mind, life, and we think that this is what we are. Therefore, we are in ignorance, and therefore, all our knowledge is limited, emotions are limited, and also the um, vital also is very, very imperfect. And the body, of course, is very, very limited. It is not at all what it should be. So now he is saying, and remember also in Ramdas Yoga, there are 3 levels according to him. You can go into level 2 right in the beginning, but it's not very safe. So his way is first get the psychic forward. The psychic is the divine within yourself, and the psychic is a representation of the divine within you, but it is sleeping in the beginning. And then slowly through many lives, it slowly develops itself and then becomes a psychic being. But before it becomes a psychic being, it's only the divine presence, almost in theory. Okay, almost in theory. It is real, but it is sleeping and it is absolutely unconscious in the atom. Then slowly from there it goes into a living creature, and from living creatures also there is a huge variation of living creatures, right from the unicellular creature to insects to smaller animals and to bigger animals. There's a development of consciousness. The consciousness is the one that is evolving, and it uses this consciousness uses more and more evolved biological forms to express itself. That is obvious, because what the worm can do, okay, the cat can do much better, and the cat also can, what it can do, the chimpanzee can do much better, and man can do much better, all these put together. But even then, man is imperfect. So this is a gradation. It's a slow and long journey to reach the divine. So the first step recommends get the psychic forward. Let the psyche come in front. It removes all the imperfections slowly, that also not immediately. It is very patient and it deals with you not like an enemy, cutting left and right and rejecting. No, it slowly sees what your nature is and works around your nature. It does not reject your nature, it transforms it. And naturally, transformation is more difficult than the rejection. So it slowly works on you, and it may take years, it may take even lives, okay, but it slowly purifies you. And every progress that you make in one life is carried over to the next. Don't think that there is a complete cessation and a disconnection between the various lives. Each life you take one step forward. If you're lucky, you may take 2 steps forward, but it's a long journey. So in this journey, he's talking first of the psychic being. The psychic being is that which is absolutely pure. It's a representation of the divine consciousness in man. And simply saying that when that comes forward, it's a wonderful experience. But it is not enough. So what do you do next? You have to raise. The psychic is within you horizontally, deep inside your heart region. But the second level is the spiritual planes of consciousness. You become much, 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 much. You are, remember, the psychic being purifies your nature, but the rising into the spiritual planes of consciousness, the self, it doesn't purify you, but it only allows you to disconnect yourself from your body mind life. The body mind life will remain the same unless the psychic has already started its work. But when you escape, like it happened to Sri Aurobindo, he went up and he disconnected himself from the dirt and the impurities and the limitations of the body mind life of level 1. So that is the first. So he wants both. He wants you to rise out, cease to identify yourself with body mind life, but at the same time, get the psychic forward to start purifying the body mind life. But even that is imperfect. So finally, you have to go to the third level, the supramental level, which is very rare. It's not at all very common. Most people are very satisfied by going to the second level, moksha. Okay, they are very satisfied because the soul is now free, but not the body mind life. So you disconnect and reject the body mind life in other systems, like the Buddhistic system, the Raj Yoga, Jnana Yoga, but not in Sri Aurobindo Yoga. In Sri Aurobindo Yoga, that's a starting point of mounting to the highest third level, which is the supermind. And there you have the full purity of the divine. That's what he's explaining. Now we read each sentence. And yet, even the leading of the inmost psychic being is not found sufficient until it has succeeded in raising itself out of this mass of inferior nature to the highest spiritual levels, and the divine spark and flame descended here have rejoined themselves to their original fiery ether. So, big sentence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll look at each one. So first of all, the psychic has to come forward. And not only that, it has to raise itself out of this mass of inferior nature. Inferior nature, body, mind, life. Okay, with all its imperfections. So your consciousness has to come out of this inferior nature. It's like a prison, and you have to escape from the prison. You have to realize you are not body, mind, life. And to the highest spiritual levels, obviously he's talking of the supermind. Okay? And the divine spark and flame descended here have rejoined themselves to their original fiery ether. Now, note the word divine spark and flame. This is the psychic being. It's a spark and a flame. The spark is in the beginning, and it can turn into a flame later on, and it can become a blazing fire sometimes when it is absolutely in front and starts purifying you. But that has to descend here, and it has to rejoin themselves to the original fiery ether. Note the word fiery ether. We know that the highest levels of consciousness are ether and fire. Ether, air, fire, water, earth. So when he's using the word fiery ether, he's talking about the higher levels. Okay. So not only you have to rise and go up. Okay. You have to raise yourself or you have to rise. Same thing. But the highest also must descend into you. That's why in Srimad Yoga, it is, this is the important thing. You can rise out and go to level 2, and you have disconnected yourself with your body, mind, life. Body, mind, life will remain imperfect, but you are free, and it may be very satisfactory. But the lower has to be also purified. And how can you do that? By, if you want to take the image of the sea, if you 5 meters from the surface deeper, light can still be seen, but 10 meters below, the light is hardly seen. If you look up, if you are in the sea and going down to 10 meters, you look up, you can't see the light anymore. Go down to 1 mile, no light at all. So what do? You have to shine a higher light. And what is meant by that? You have to go to a higher level of consciousness where the light is even stronger. Then it can come down. So when Srimad is saying, descended here, have rejoined themselves to their original fire ether, he means that the light from the supermind must come down and illumine the darker portions of your mind and life and body, even the body. Okay, so this is what he's saying. Ascent and descent in Srimad Yoga is essential. For the other yogas, ascent is enough. Your consciousness goes up and is free, and you are satisfied. But for Srimad Yoga, the lower must come down. And how do you do that? By aspiration, by constant remembrance. So I go to the next sentence. For there is no longer a spiritual consciousness still imperfect and half lost to itself in the thick sheets of human mind, life and body, but the full spiritual consciousness in its purity, freedom, and intense wideness. In this sentence, there are 3 levels. We'll identify the levels. For there is there, the second there is the supermind. But there is the normal English. But there is there, that means the supermind, no longer a spiritual consciousness, still imperfect. So even the spiritual consciousness is imperfect at level 2. At level 1, there is no spiritual consciousness. So at level 2, there is a spiritual consciousness, but it is imperfect. Okay? And even there in the supermind, even the spiritual consciousness, which is imperfect, becomes perfect when it rises to the 3rd level. And half lost itself in the thick sheets of human mind, life, body. So which are the thick sheets of human mind, life, body? Level 1, our normal condition. Our physical body, our very imperfect vital, and our mind. But then at the third level, the full spiritual consciousness in its purity, freedom, and intense wideness. So this is the third level. So in that sentence, you can see very clearly he's talking about the three. Even the spiritual consciousness is not enough and it is imperfect. It is perfect enough for you to be satisfied. But for Sri it is not enough. He wants you to go to the highest level and change even body, mind, life. There, as it is the eternal knower, there again, the word there means spirit, supramental. As it is the eternal knower, knower with a K cap, God, that becomes a knower in us. So, because when you go to the highest level, your consciousness becomes one with the higher consciousness. Because there is identification is possible. Just as you can mix the river, which is individual, goes into the sea and becomes one with the sea. Exactly in the same way, the individual soul, when it rises to the third level, it becomes part of the sea of God. So you become one with him. So the knower in you, the individual knower, becomes the eternal knower. Now God is doing everything through you. Your small ego has disappeared and your consciousness is clear enough for him to work on you directly. And he is the mover and user of all knowledge. So it is the eternal, all blissful, who is the adored, attracting to himself the eternal divine portion of his being. Which is the eternal divine portion of his being? The individual soul. Okay, very clearly you can identify. Eternal divine portion. Okay? Mamaiva Amsha is the Gita's. The divine portion of his being is the individual soul. Okay, note the words carefully. Next time you'll see that what he's talking of divine portion means the individual soul. And joy that has gone out into the play of the universe. The play of the universe, level 1. Infinite lover pouring himself out in the multiplicity of his own manifested selves in a happy oneness. The multiplicity, again, level 1, of his own manifested selves. He is now using the plural. The individual, each individual is his own self manifested. Okay? So it's not only one individual, but 100 million, 1,000 individuals. They are all connected in a happy oneness because they are all coming from God. All beauty in the world is there. The beauty of the beloved. So every beauty that you see here, beauty in flowers, beauty in thoughts, beauty in music, whatever you see, now you connect it very easily with the beauty of the divine. All beauty in the world is there. Again, there means at the spiritual, supramental level, the beauty of the beloved and all forms of beauty have to stand under the light of the eternal beauty. Temporal beauty, beauty in time and space have become the beauty, eternal beauty outside time and space. Submit themselves to the sublimating and transfiguring power of the unveiled divine perfection. Very clear. Unveiled divine perfection, all the two adjectives, unveiled and divine, the third level, the supramental level. All bliss and joy are there of the all blissful, and all inferior forms of enjoyment at level 1, our normal forms of enjoyment. Enjoyment of food, enjoyment of relations, enjoyment of possession, okay? All these things, enjoyment, happiness or pleasure. Look at the words, enjoyment, happiness and pleasure. There is no mention of bliss or ecstasy or ananda, okay? So all these are inferior forms. Enjoyment, happiness, pleasure are subjected to the shock of the intensity of its floods or currents, and either they are broken to pieces as inadequate things under its convicting stress or compelled to transmute themselves into the forms of the divine Ananda. So all your small enjoyments If they are more limited and a little imperfect and very even distorted enjoyment, okay, they are broken to pieces. But if there is this element of truth in it, it is transmuted. So look at the words. Inferior forms of enjoyment. There can be very perverse forms of enjoyment also. Na? Sometimes you, for instance, if your enemy is in trouble, you enjoy it. And is that not bad? It's really not at all desirable. But that's exactly what he's saying. So that sort of enjoyment will be destroyed. Okay. And if your friend, okay, is having success, you enjoy his own success. This is very common in our cricket when there 11 players are there, but they sometimes there is a little bit of rivalry also. He succeeded, I didn't succeed. But they tell you to have a team spirit and enjoy all the other team members' success. So if that is there, it is made even more perfect. Okay. So the right enjoyment is made perfect and the wrong enjoyment is destroyed. That's what he's saying. Very interesting what he's saying. Either are broken to pieces as inadequate things under its convicting stress. The ananda that comes from up is very powerful and it compels to transmute themselves into the forms of the divine ananda. I refer you to two sonnets of Sri Aurobindo, okay, in the poetry volume, the divine hearing and the divine sight. Everything that he is seeing is divine. Everything that he is hearing is a divine. Okay. So there is the ananda. So even see the beautiful music, whether Western or Indian, gives you ananda. It's a pure ananda. But the divine ananda is very strange. Sri Aurobindo says in the sonnet, he says that even the car going in the road, its sound is usually very disturbing. But he's saying even that you start enjoying. He says the screech of the eagle and the siren, the factory opening its doors to the workers, it starts with the siren. Even that you enjoy. So you see, that's what he's saying. So read that sonnet of his, the divine hearing. Okay. It's very interesting. And the divine sight. That's what it becomes. But all wrong forms of enjoyment are destroyed. Thus, for the individual consciousness, a force is manifested which can deal sovereignly in it with the diminutions and degradations of the values of the ignorance. So, the two words, diminution and degradation, also make a very clear distinction. When the power is diminished, when the consciousness is diminished, it's very clear. The intensity is less. But the diminution, okay, is more and more negative. The positive things are becoming more and more negative, apparently. But if you are in a higher consciousness, behind the degradation, you will see also the pure form. You will see the pure form of the values of the ignorance. Certainly, using the word values of the ignorance. When you are in the ignorance, all that you are seeing and experiencing is valid for you. Okay? It is valid for you. It is a value. The word value used in a very large sense. At last, it begins to be possible to bring down into life. Again, he's talking of the descent. At last, it begins to be possible to bring down into life the immense reality and intense concreteness of the love and joy that are of the eternal. Now, note the interesting thing. The subtler the thing, the more concrete it is. That's a funny part. And the gross forms, to us, they appear to be very concrete, but actually they are the least concrete. When you go up, you'll see that they are absolutely empty. There is no substance at all in them. Okay. So or at any rate, it will be possible for our spiritual consciousness to raise itself out of mind into the supramental light and force and vastness. So, note the words: light, first of all, intense light, and force is available now. The force is not so available in the level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness. That's why he calls it imperfect. Okay? And vastness. You are not limited at all. Vastness with the V cap suggests infinity in space. So, no limitation at all. They are in the light and potency of the supramental gnosis. Now, openly is using the word supramental gnosis, are the splendor and joy of a power of divine self-expression and self-organization, which could rescue and recreate even the world of the ignorance into a figure of the truth of the spirit. So in this last sentence, he's giving you a hint that even in the physical world, there can be a manifestation of the divine, which is one step even higher than the mental consciousness. That's what he's saying finally. Okay. So, what's the time? 8:20. So we have got 15 minutes more. I think we can read the next para. Everybody is there?
Yes, Rangadhar.
Okay. So who will read the next one? Pallavi. It's your day. Tuesday is your day. You are the initiator of the Tuesday class. Go ahead, read. If you have the text.
Okay, Rangadhar. Yes, I have.
Okay. Go ahead.
There in the supramental gnosis is the fulfillment, the culminating height, the all-embracing extent of the inner adoration, the profound and integral union, the flaming wings of love, upbearing the power and joy of a supreme knowledge. For supramental love brings an active ecstasy that surpasses the void, passive peace and stillness, which is the heaven of the liberated mind, and does not betray the deeper, greater calm, which is the beginning of the supramental silence. The unity of a love which is able to include in itself all differences without being diminished or abrogated by their present limitations and apparent dissonance is raised to its full potentiality on the supramental level. For there, an intense oneness with all creatures, founded on a profound oneness of the soul with the divine, can harmonize with a play of relations that only makes the oneness more perfect and absolute. The power of love, supramentalized, can take hold of all living relations without hesitation or danger and turn them Godwards, delivered from their crude, mixed, and petty human settings and sublimated into the happy material of a divine life. For it is the very nature of the supramental experience that it can perpetuate the play of difference without forfeiting or in the least diminishing either the divine union or the infinite oneness. For the supramentalized consciousness, it would be utterly possible to embrace all contacts with men and the world in a purified flame force and with a transfigured significance, because the soul would then perceive always as the object of all emotion and all seeking for love or beauty, the one eternal, and could spiritually use a wide and liberated life urge to meet and join with that one divine in all things and all creatures.
Okay. So that's the end of the section. There are 3 stars at the end of the para. So, so we'll read. Now he's openly discussing the supramental state. Okay. There in the supramental gnosis is the fulfillment, Note the word fulfillment, because when you are at level 2, the fulfillment is only for the soul, but not for the body, mind, life. So, but now it is fulfillment, the culminating height, the all-embracing extent of the inner adoration. All-embracing, okay? It embraces everything, even the lowest, okay? The inner adoration, the profound and integral union, the flaming wings of love, upbearing the power and joy of a supreme knowledge. So in the supramental world, there is knowledge, but there is also love. It is love that is bearing the power and joy of a supreme knowledge. In level 2, the love may not be there. There may be only knowledge. I'm not saying that there isn't. There need not be. You may have only knowledge. As it happened with Sri Aurobindo, it was so clear. There was no emotion at all for him. But there can be emotion. But even if there is emotion, it is not perfect emotion like the supramental. So he's saying the flaming wings of love, very clearly. Love also implies ananda and beauty. Okay, they always go together. Love, beauty, and joy. These three always go together. Each one implies the other. It doesn't reject any. All the three are one at the highest level. Even at our level, although they are distorted, love, ananda, and beauty go together. Maybe very small measure, but they go together. For the supramental love brings an active ecstasy. Note that. The ecstasy is active. It can become very, very living and powerful even in the physical world. He's using the word active in a very clear sense. In the spiritual planes of consciousness, the ecstasy may be there, but it's not active. It's limited only to level 2, but it's not limit. It is not applicable always in the level 1. So active ecstasy is there at level 3 that surpasses the void passive peace and stillness, which is the heaven of the liberated mind. Now, very clear identification. Okay, now active ecstasy, level 3. The void passive peace and stillness, which is the heaven of the liberated mind, level 2. Very clear. Okay, so once these ideas are clear, then it becomes at level 2, the peace and silence are there, but they are passive. There is no power. Okay, it's passive. It is only receiving. It's not reacting, which is the heaven of the liberated mind. The liberated mind is very, very obviously the spiritual planes of consciousness, level 2. Okay, it is not that. It is much more. So they say, which is the heaven of the, and does not betray the deeper, greater calm, which is the beginning of the supramental silence. Okay, so the unity of a love which is able to include in itself all differences without being diminished or abrogated by their present limitations and apparent dissonances, is raised to its full potentiality on the supramental level. Each word, if you see, it gives you a very clear picture. The unity of a love which is able to include in itself all differences. At our level, when there is love, okay, it is usually exclusive. It's limited only to either one person or one thing. Okay, and that thing may be a collective thing also, but it is still limited, it is exclusive. But in the supramental world, it is inclusive. It is able to include in itself all differences, even your differences with your own people, differences with your, even the enemy, okay, without being diminished or abrogated by their present limitations and apparent dissonances. Note the dissonances are only apparent, is raised to its full potentiality on the supramental level. So very clearly he has told you that the power, the love becomes active. It has the power to change also at level 1. And secondly, it is something that includes everything. It does not exclude anything at all. Your love goes out to everything in the world. Even a little bit of that is experienced in the psychic. When the psychic being comes forward, you start loving everything. Flowers, animals, okay? And even if you had enmity or little hatred for others, that becomes more tolerant. That's the interesting part. It may not disappear entirely until the psychic is absolutely capable of transforming it, but it becomes more tolerant. Hate disappears, but it does not include everybody. But at the supramental level, it is completely inclusive. It includes everything without being diminished or abrogated. Either it can be diminished or it can be abrogated, completely annulled, completely rejected by their present limitations and apparent dissonances, is raised to its highest potentiality on the supramental level. For there, again, he is using the word there again and again and again. Okay, very clearly he's saying the supramental. For there, an intense oneness with all creatures. This oneness is not a mental oneness or an emotional oneness. It's a spiritual oneness. Okay, and the spiritual oneness can go as far as even the subtle body can become one. If you remember the experience of the yogi who is seeing an animal being whipped, and the whip marks appear on his own back. Okay, so that's the intense oneness, including the subtle physical, with all creatures, founded on a profound oneness of the soul with the divine, can harmonize with a play of relations. Play of relations, very clearly level 1. Okay, that only makes the oneness more perfect and absolute. The power of love, supramentalized, can take hold of all living relations without hesitation or danger and turn them Godwards, delivered from their crude, mixed, and petty human settings and sublimated into the happy material of a divine life. Okay, so he's saying, note carefully and think of the opposite, then meaning becomes clear. The power of love supramentalized can take hold of all living relations without hesitation or danger. When even you are at level 2, okay, even when you are at level 2, sometimes you have to avoid certain people, okay, because it can be dangerous. At our level, of course, you have to avoid because we are open and the vibrations of others which are harmful to you can enter into you. So you have to be very, very choosy with whom you are associating or not. That is the reason for the success of Sangha. Okay, such Sangha. You go to a place where the vibrations are good. So that is there is no danger there at the supramental level. And turn them Godwards, delivered from their crude, mixed, and petty human settings, and sublimated, made subtle into and purified, sublimated, made subtle and purified, okay, into the happy material of a divine life. Not the word material, okay, substance of a divine life. Even the body becomes perfect. For it is the very nature of the supramental experience that it can perpetuate the play of difference without forfeiting or in the least diminishing either the divine union or the infinite oneness. For supramentalized consciousness, it would be utterly possible to embrace all contacts with men and the world in a purified flame force and with a transfigured significance. What is a significance for you at this level becomes completely changed, because the soul would then perceive always as the object of all emotion and all seeking for love or beauty, the one eternal, and could spiritually use a wide and liberated life urge to meet and join with that one divine in all things and all creatures. So, this is the fulfillment of the supramental, where you have complete unity with everybody. Power is available to you. Ananda is powerful, and his description is very, very clear. At level 2, Ananda, even if it is there, and love is there, and even power is there, it is not complete. That's what he said. Okay, we stop here today.